Ralph, how long were you with the CIA?
I was with them 25 years. I joined in 1952. I retired in 1977.
What was your function? What was your job?
I had a variety of jobs. I was a case officer on intelligence collection. I was a covert operator. I was involved in paramilitary operations. In the last 4 years with the agency, I was an analyst with the International Communism Branch.
Paramilitary operations where?
In Thailand and to a degree in Vietnam.
How do you view the CIA? Let me rephrase that question. A good many of us do not have a clear picture of what the CIA does. I think many of us believe it is an intelligence gathering agency, that it gets information, that information becomes intelligence, and then it passes it on to key areas in the government. Is that an accurate impression?
No, it isn't. It's my view, and it's supportable by all the evidence we can see in the Church Committee report and the Pike Committee report and other collateral information. The CIA is not an intelligence agency. It's a covert action agency. Covert action being overthrowing or supporting foreign governments. Another part of covert action is disinformation. And the American people, in my estimation, are the primary target audience of the agency's disinformation operation. And I view Vietnam, the entire Vietnam War, was brought to us, sold to us, by agency disinformation operations. When I say us, I mean the American people.
Well, that had to be done, of course, through the press.
Yes.
How else would one reach the American public? Well, how does the CIA develop its relationship with the press?
Well, it happens on many levels in many different ways. It could be a director of agency contact with a publisher, or it could be a lower-level agency employee with a lower-level person, or managing editor, per se. Or it could be hiring agency people, and placing them in the news organization. Or it could be giving information to a reporter and winning his goodwill. It could be just a friendship sort of basis. It sort of covers the skein of relationships that you can have, in any social situation.
This relationship demands participation on the part of the press, though, does it not?
Oh, of course.
Well, how does it participate?
It can participate in many ways. It can publish articles that the agency wants published.
Knowingly publish it because the CIA wants it done, or
unknowingly?
Yes.
Well, both. Knowingly most of the time, I would guess. And sometimes the information is passed to a reporter as valid information, a good scoop, if you will, when it's just planted propaganda. So the agency uses the press in numerous ways to achieve its, what I call, illusion-building properties.
When you were with the CIA in Vietnam, did you have any direct connection with the press?
No, I didn't. I do know of the case of the press in Saigon in the early 50s, where they were meeting directly with Colonel Lansdale. 5 members of the most prestigious newspapers in the United States were meeting with Colonel Lansdale, the agency's man in Saigon. And
how often would they meet?
Quite frequently. I don't know the exact frequency. But you will look at the press coverage for that era, and you'll find no mention of agency activities in the press. Yet the agency was totally responsible for the creation of the Diem regime. It created the Diem regime. It built an illusion about the Diem regime, and it used the press to sell the illusion to the United States, the illusion that lives on today in the United States.
Do you think that those 5 members of whom you speak had any idea that they were being used?
You have to, the atmosphere of those days where the press and the government were so in tune on the issues that I believe it was a very much a cooperative effort more than a using effort. The press viewed the situation as the government did, and both cooperated in putting across the stories.
The CIA were good folks with which one could be associated? Was that what you're saying at that time?
At that time, yes, yes. Of course, the agency developed what they called Wisner's Wurlitzer. That was what they call an organ that he could play any tune he wanted anywhere in the world at any time. Supposedly they owned one newspaper in any country of the world, and whatever articles they want run, whatever themes that they wanted to propagate, all they had to do was just press the right buttons, and those articles and themes would come up in those countries.
I think we'd like to know who Wisner was.
Wisner was a former deputy chief of the operations branch of the CIA.
I see. And he created the Wurlitzer.
He created the Wurlitzer. And we find now, this came under the corporate action staff of the agency, and from recent information, William Casey is concentrating all his efforts in rebuilding the agency in developing the corporate action staff. That's the staff that develops in international organizations, international press organizations, international organizations of all types, that penetrates press, religious, academic institutions, here home and abroad. This is where he's concentrating the rebuilding effort.
Why does the CIA do this? What is the objective of the CIA when they put out disinformation, when they, you might say, co-opt the press?
One function of the agency, as noted by the Church Committee, is to create an international anti-communist ideology. Well, it's my thesis, the reason you want to create this international anti-communist ideology is so that when you go down to Nicaragua and you want to overthrow the government of Nicaragua, well, you can't justify to the American people going down there and overthrowing that government unless you can link it to a greater threat. It's just a little insignificant nation. But if you can link it to a greater threat, then you're justified in overthrowing it. And that's exactly what's happening in Nicaragua. It's not the Nicaraguans fighting to sustain the way of life that they want. It's the Cubans or the Soviets and Cubans who are supporting this regime, and we are therefore, by working against the Nicaraguan government, we are actually thwarting the plans of the Soviet Union. That justifies our actions in that country.
Do you think the State Department was part and parcel of the CIA plan, or was the State Department taken in by the CIA?
I think at the very highest levels of government, the National Security Council that directs the agency, probably a very small clique of people knew about it, but certainly at the working levels of the State Department, even Daniel Ellsberg, who I've talked to recently, said he had no idea, and he worked on the white paper, he had no idea that this was based on an agency corporate operation. This is just one example of thousands that could be brought up. The agency routinely forges.
Tell me another one, and do what?
Some I can't talk about.
Yeah.
I'm afraid I just can't. I mean, under security restrictions, not to. But look at the white paper in El Salvador. It was based on the discovery of communist documents in El Salvador, and supposedly a leader of a small communist movement had gone around to Vietnam, had gone to West Germany, the PLO, all our presumed enemies in the world, and they'd all promised to support him. This document was discovered all at once, just as Reagan was taking office, and this would form the basis of a white paper on El Salvador. And many critics have pointed out the obvious fallacies within the white paper and the obvious forgery that it was. That's another one, and there are examples of doctored photographs that I can't talk about, and the planting of articles is a routine. It's a daily thing that goes on. You have a theme that is developed, the anti-communist ideology. So you constantly are planting articles in newspapers in one country, and you pick it up and replay it in another country. And you use the techniques of white, gray, and black propaganda.
What's that mean?
White propaganda is more or less a U.S. government statement. Everybody recognizes it as such. Gray propaganda is a statement, the sourcing is not quite clear, it's fuzzed up. Black propaganda would be if the agency would put out something, say, from the Communist Party of China and make it appear authentic. One good example of this During the Cultural Revolution in China, the agency, through its radio transmitters on Taiwan, would come in at the tail end of radio broadcasts, mainland radio broadcasts, and they would pretend that they were just continuations of the program, and they would say, well, the situation is terrible in China. You know, there's a uproar, the upheaval of the Cultural Revolution. Well, there's sort of a playback on this in that the agency, Foreign Broadcast Information Service, was picking up those broadcasts, and they thought this information to be authentic, and they were disseminating it to the intelligence community, and the intelligence community was saying, estimating the situation based on agency disinformation.
Let's pin down something you said a moment ago. Does this covert action exist in the CIA today as greatly as it did in the past?
As I understand, the covert action staff is being rebuilt on a massive scale. That Director William Casey is concentrating all his efforts in rebuilding the staff. And we can assume that it's operating again in academia, in the press, in the religious groups, in international groups, in labor, youth, students. If it isn't now, it will soon will be.
In your opinion, is the press manipulated as much today as in the past?
I don't think it's as possible to manipulate the press as much today as was in the past. The press is much more skeptical, as are the American people in general. It'd be more difficult to do it, yet I'm sure that in some areas, of course, it is being manipulated.
I think you've answered my question in part already, but the public, in your opinion, cannot be hoodwinked as easily as they were in the past. Is that what you're saying?
Right. I don't think they can be hoodwinked as easily. However, some of the illusions of the past continue, and one of those illusions is what the Vietnam War was all about.
Well, do you think with the manipulation of the press, which you have explained and which you believe still goes on to a degree, do you think another war such as Vietnam could be sold to the American people?
Not nearly so easily. I think it could be done, but it would take a more sustained effort, more across-the-board effort. I think there's a lot of skepticism out there, and it would be very difficult to sell, but it could be done.